Hello, can you hear me? Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great to see you, and you look fabulous.
So do you.
Thank you.
I love that background with the
Right?
books.
Right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
funny story. I actually do live at the space itself.
Oh, wow. So you are
It's
really making use of that space in every possible. This is
yes,
love. This is all love.
yes.
I
Wow.
love that.
You look amazing. I love the background you've chosen.
Thank you. I thought appropriately green, injection of sunshine into
Yeah,
this event. Yeah. Is Eloghosa with us or she's coming?
I think she's coming.
Great.
Yeah, so I guess we should be waiting. Question, since I love a little literary gossip. Um, you told us about a novel deadline. Is this Kurandera?
Yes, that's Kurandera. Yes.
Oh my God. Is it well, I don't know if I should ask this, but is it also coming from Jacaranda?
No, so I'm with a new publisher. Jacaranda
Okay.
published my first two books,
Yeah.
which was lovely. But Nudibranch and Kurandera are with Hachette.
Dialogue.
With
Oh yes.
Dialogue, who are part of Hachette. Yes, so
Okay.
it's I've left Jacaranda, but that they did really brilliant things. So, it's all part of the growth process.
Yeah, because so we have we have copies of Speak Gigantula and Butterfly Fish sitting in
Oh,
our
that's lovely.
yeah, we know. Because so I'm the one who does the orders, and I was just like, it's funny, we want to be that kind of space where cool, everybody loves Nudibranch. I love it so much, but
The back
yeah,
catalogue.
exactly. But it's just a thing in Kenya for some reason. Like, so if a writer writes a book and then it's out,
Yeah.
and maybe it's, for instance, I'll give an example of Abdul Razak Gurna with Afterlives.
Oh,
So
yes.
Afterlives was everywhere with people not
Yes.
having any idea about the backlists. And then suddenly he
Yeah.
wins the Nobel and everybody is like, oh my God, one
Do
of
you
his
know,
best books.
he's such a, so I'm on the RSL
Yes.
council, the Royal Society of Literature, and he was on that council with me. Each, they do 2-year runs, but
Yeah.
his term ran out just this year. And he's such a lovely, lovely man. And I've been familiar with his books for years. So to see him get, I mean, it's so well deserved. Like, so many people were so thrilled for him when it happened, because he's so unassuming. Even even in, meeting him, he's very, very chilled and very bright, but very, 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 very chilled energy. So it's wonderful. But Cheche seemed to be like one of the spaces in Kenya, man. I mean,
we
that's the place to have your books by the sounds of it.
yeah, we are very honored to just have all these great works of literature. This book, oh my God,
Yeah, it's
what is this?
fantastic. It's brilliant.
Eloghosa literally created a genre of their own. I
It's
I was stunned, which is, and also very, very jealous that you got to read this. Because I think in one of the advanced readers copies, I saw your name.
Oh, really? Oh,
I
yeah,
think,
probably.
yeah, I was just like, and I also saw you in, so we have, I guess I can tell you, we have Ashley coming on for conversations with authors. I saw your name also on his banner. And I'm just thinking, wow, how riveting it must be to be in the behind the scenes before these books come out.
Yeah, I mean, it's lovely. It's also nice to get to support these writers, because I'm somebody who I've supported so many writers, and I think that it's good to pass it on in that way. Community is important. So when there's a new voice that you want to you want to say, look at this, what this person is doing, and yeah, you should be reading what they're doing. It's nice to be able to be behind the scenes and
Ah,
get, because publishers send me books all the time.
lucky
So
you.
it's lovely. It's a wonderful part of the process, I think, being able to like read these different works and just be enriched by them. So we're in a good place. But I mean, you run a bookshop slash, it's a cafe space as well, is it?
So Cheche is a bookstore, a coffee house. I like to tell all the customers that come in that we have the best coffee in the environs, because we do, and a community space. So basically how the space has been structured is that people can come in and they can read, they can work from here. We provide free Wi-Fi, just a place where anybody wants to just sit down and chill and think and create. And there's no cap. We're not going to tell anybody you have to pay. Just come sit, do your thing. That was my boss. She came up with the idea of Cheche Books like this. Also, just the space is meant to actually debunk the myth that Kenyans don't read.
Yeah.
And honestly, the client base here is so loyal. When this came, it was gone.
Of course.
I don't know how fast.
Of course. That's great. So
We
people are really, really hungry for the books,
We have not yet gotten to a place where people will be lining up at the bookstore on publication date, like people do in London with Sally Rooney. But but I guess the future is making its way there. But
it's about having that community though, isn't it? It's about, like you said, having that excitement. It doesn't, an excitement can be in different ways,
Yes.
The fact that people are using the space, the fact that the books are gone in 2 days or a day. I mean, that's great. That's fantastic, so you've got to be happy with that.
We are very thrilled. We have a book coming that I'm also kind of dying to read, because literally I have not started anything since I finished On Earth We Were Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, because this was the publication week for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. And I just said that there is absolutely, Eloghosa is in.
Oh, lovely.
I said that there is absolutely no way I am going to start anything, because I want to read that. There is a bookstore which had it already. Our copies are coming in, but I am so excited because I have a feeling that is going to be top tier messy romance novel, and that's what I want.
That's always good.
Yes. At this juncture, Eloghosa, hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really well. It's so nice to see you.
I'm so sorry I'm a little late.
I know
I was having some connectivity issues.
Don't worry about it.
No worries. I think it's kind of par for the course now with Zoom stuff that you're going to have internet issues and problems connecting. So, but you are here and we are very, very happy to have you here. Eloghosa, I'm going to ask you to read 2 excerpts while we're having our conversation. So if you have the novel to hand, that would be really, really good. Do you have a copy to hand?
Not right now, but I can get one in 1 minute.
Okay. I'll let you go and get one. And I want to check your pronouns. Is it they or her and she? Just so I'm clear.
She, they.
She, they. Okay.
She, they. Yeah.
Okay, so she is fine. Okay, cool. That's awesome. All right. Okay. Well, I think, have you got, let me let you get a copy so that we make sure that you can. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Well, Ndegwa, when you are ready, just
Eloghosa, welcome.
Thank you.
Are looking absolutely gorgeous. Honestly, just before we start, I have to say, everybody who came into the store for this keeps looking at your picture at the back and being like, oh my God. Yeah, it's literally a thing. It's become, and everyone is like, she is divine. And I'm like, yes, that's Eloghosa for you, but welcome, and we are so thrilled to have you. And I am going to mute myself now so that you guys can begin.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to crack on. I'm Irenosen Okojie, and I'm so pleased to be moderating this event with Eloghosa Osunde, a brilliant and exciting new voice whose writing has been championed by the likes of Marlon James. Her debut novel, Vagabonds, was released earlier this year to much excitement and critical acclaim. We're delighted to have her join us for this Cheche Books discussion. I'd like to introduce her without further ado. Eloghosa Osunde is a Nigerian writer and visual artist. Her short stories have been published in Catapult, Gulf Coast, Guernica, Berlin Quarterly, as well as the Paris Review, where she has a column. And her visual art has been exhibited across 4 continents so far. She is a 2019 Lambada Literary Fellow, a 2020 MacDowell Colony Fellow, and the winner of the 2021 Paris Review Plimpton Prize for Fiction. Those are some fantastic accolades. Eloghosa, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. Listen, Vagabonds is amazing. It's just this kaleidoscopic novel about Echo, the spirit of Lagos, and his minion, and they take us through this sort of underworld of Lagos where we're introduced to disenfranchised characters. And it reveals, I think, the city's frenetic underbelly. I wonder if you could just kick off by telling us your intentions for this book, firstly, and why it was so important to center this singular, distinctive story.
Thank you so much, Irenosen. It's so good to be in conversation with you. I love your story, Grace Jones.
Oh, thank you.
Blew my mind when I read that. I think that story just goes to so many exciting and surprising places. So I really, really love your work. And this is a special conversation.
You are so generous. Thank you.
But yeah, what was my intention with this book or this story? I think I wanted to write a book that didn't exist within certain constraints. One of those constraints would be writing a book that, only tells us what's happening in quote unquote real life. I wanted to break constraints like that and just write a story where the things that happen in my imagination are not bound or confined or broken down or shut down by things like the law. So yeah, that was my intention in writing the book.
I love that you think in that way, that you're not held back by constraints nor want to tell a story in a kind of linear way. And what I notice about this, what I really like is the kind of scope of the work. There's not only this kind of vitality to the way it's written, but the ambition of it is really interesting. We've got these very different characters. We have a driver who drives for a politician. We have this lesbian couple and their experience of underground sex work. We have this mother who experiences a kind of shift in reality by going to this secret meeting. So there's lots happening. So to me, it was really impressive on that front, the kind of the scope of it. So I wonder if that was also something you were very clear that you wanted to have as part of this book, or did it come through the process when you were writing it? Just talk a little bit about your choice regarding that, because I think that's very, very interesting. Sometimes writers do things deliberately, and sometimes it just evolves as part of the process.
Yeah. I don't think I had the full picture when I first started writing it, because I wrote a short story first. And then over time, it became clear to me that all of the short stories belonged in one book and that book was a novel. So I think that when I started writing the short stories, I was writing them as like singular sort of worlds. And then as the book's structure became clearer to me, I just knew that all the fragments that I thought were standalone were going to belong in one place, and that the book essentially because it could fit all those stories, is a book about belonging. Like it's a book about like, yeah, what can fit in a world? Spirits can fit in a world. Queer people can fit in the same world. Like the city itself can fit in the world. Like I love that because these stories were coming from different places, because I hadn't yet connected the thread, I was free to write in such a way that when they all came together, it made, I don't know, this big explosive thing. So yeah, I had this idea to like put all the fragments together. But also I think that at every turn, the book continued to surprise me, with where it wanted to go.
I love
so I
that.
think it's both, yeah.
I love that. And, you just, for me, in that sentence, it encapsulates the joy of writing, the writing process, because you can have an idea and you can have, you can have things you want to explore. But when you start becoming a vehicle for the story, and it just is almost creating itself, that is, I think, peak writer experience. And I think you've just beautifully summed it up. And also, like, what you're doing with this novel that I think is really fascinating, it's so wonderful to hear you talk about this, is I think, blurring the boundaries between the short form and the novel, because essentially in its first iteration, this is about what can make a book. How can a book evolve? How do you make it grow? So we have a short story at first, and then you have ideas for more characters, for different experiences, for what can fit in this world, and the world doesn't have to be one particular experience. We see that in this book so brilliantly. I mean, it's such an immersive experience, this work that you've created. You absolutely shatter the boundaries between the spiritual and physical realms, and I think you do this acutely by presenting the kind of internal landscapes of these spiritual characters in ways that feel intimate and authentic. Were there books that you drew inspiration from for that? Because when I was reading this, I was thinking about Amos Tutuola's The Palm Wine Drinkers. That book just spoke to me when I was like, oh my God, this is like a sibling, of that book in a way, which I think is a big compliment to your writing. So I'm curious about other literary inspirations that might have factored in when you were writing this.
I actually think that, like, as far as world building goes, my biggest influence for this book was actually the Bible. I think the Bible does so well in like looping stories together to form a thing, like something that carries a spirit, Because when you think about the way the Bible is structured, it's basically an anthology. That's what it is. But it's also a book. Like, it's a very concise book. It's telling you a story over like an arc, Yeah. I feel like that was actually my main like influence. But then apart from that, Marlon James's A Brief History of Seven Killings, because that book showed me that a book can actually have a cast of characters and it doesn't have to feel scattered, because they can all be saying the same thing. Like, you can choose your book's gravitational force. You can actually choose what holds everything together. And I feel like that book chooses an incident as opposed to like a plot.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that would be one of the
both very, very interesting choices. And actually, when you say the Bible, I'm like, that makes so much sense. It's like the original OG anthology is the Bible.
Yeah, actually.
I mean, the stories are so well done, and the worlds, although they're, quite succinct, they are very richly developed. So, and that makes complete sense. And then, of course, Marlon, I mean, what a feat, that book, Brief History of Seven. I read some of it. I love Marlon's work. I took it with me on holiday, and I made the foolish attempt of thinking that I would get through all of it on holiday, because it's such a, I just cannot believe how he created that. Till this day, I'm just astonished by what he did. That came from that man's brain is incredible. So those are absolutely fantastic choices. I wondered if you could give us. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question? Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
My question is with Grace Jones, because I feel like that story has like, just a place in my mind. Like it's
Right.
just made its place. So I think that my question is, when you were writing Grace Jones, what were the things that you were like, what were your influences for that story?
Wow.
They could be like music, it could be music, it could be books, it could be whatever. Like, what were you thinking about? I know obviously Grace Jones as a figure, like
Oh, yeah.
features very prominently there, but then there's also something there that's happening around like wearing somebody else's life to feel okay in yours,
Oh,
you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing. Yeah. Just also, I think I'm really curious about impersonators because it's exactly that. There's something you're honoring whoever that person is, but there's also an element of hiding yourself. And with Sidra, in that story, she has unprocessed trauma that she's kind of recreating in her adult life, whilst honoring Grace Jones. There's something there that I guess the reader hopefully figures out by the end of the story is that she plans to do something really quite tragic that we see on that receipt that's written down. So, I mean, so much. I was thinking about Toni Morrison's world building. That you can read. I mean, her work is so astonishing. Like I was thinking about jazz when I wrote that story. That's the first Toni Morrison book that I read, and it blew me away because it's a book that imitated a musical genre whilst capturing the lives of African Americans with such skill and depth and range. I was thinking about her. I was thinking about Fela Kuti's music, some of his stuff. I was thinking about Miriam Makeba. I was thinking about Blackness and Black women and how much I love Black women, but also how frustrated I can be sometimes that we are not allowed to be complex and multifaceted. So that I wanted to express that and play with that and show that unapologetically. And also, Sidra's, she's enjoying sex as well in that story. And our sexual lives are really important. Our hidden lives are really important. So all of that went into the mix. Poetry as well. I'm a huge fan of June Jordan, Black American poets, bisexual, radical Black American poet. And I used to read her poems, like you have a fruit, they say have a fruit a day, like have an apple a day. Like reading a June, that was like my apple a day. I was reading a June Jordan poem. So all those wonderful ingredients went in. But I mean, you're so generous. Thank you for asking about that process. It's such an interesting thing. I think the making of a story and what goes into it. But I was wondering if you could treat us to an excerpt from Vagabonds, please.
So I need to confess that I haven't actually decided on what part. So if you can give me just a minute,
of course.
I will find one. Okay. I'm ready. I'm reading from page 223. And this is from a section called, "But if everybody is normal, is it then good?" Okay. Mfon fell asleep to Kiki, reading her Arinde Fiakandu's story, "God's Children Are Little Broken Things." While sleeping, she had a familiar recurring dream in which she was making dinner. Always making dinner, jollof rice, because that is the daughter her mother wanted. And she opened the door to her mother's smiling face. Over dinner, In the dream, her mother asked the same question. So, have you met someone? Mfon says yes with tears in her eyes. The air is often kinder in dreams, so she opens up like a daffodil. Yes, she says, the person is everything. Patient, kind. 1 Corinthians 13. We don't even fight the way you and daddy always did. This person loves me, sleeps next to me because they want to. Doesn't make me feel like a stain. Feels like hope. I can lean against this person and not find myself on the floor. Imagine, we can even have voices at the same time. Isn't that what we wanted? Where is he? Her mother asks, clearly proud. Mfon replies, Mommy, she. In every dream before this one, Mfon had dreamt the same heart-saving outcome, where her mother wrapped an arm around her saying, okay, where is she? That ending was what had helped her hold together this long. It was her hope. But this ending was different. In this dream, her mother's face was more aged, more stern. She says, why do you keep doing this to me? Why won't you just do this one thing for your family? Even in the dream, Mfon doesn't know what to say. Mfon doesn't know how to say, because in this fantasy of yours where your daughter gets married to a man she doesn't love to prove that she loves you, my head comes off and I meet the end of my heart. You can't tell the difference from where you're standing, but that's not me you see walking down the aisle in that scenario. That's a corpse. There's no easy way to explain this, so she keeps quiet instead, because this is also an answer. Well, her mother says in her real voice, without the filter of nostalgia, you have chosen. Then she carries her bag and gets up. Take care, she says. I'll be praying for you. Mfon wakes up just then. Kiki is fast asleep next to her, so she sits up, scanning her body for sadness. There isn't any. Instead, she finds questions. Can I go on if this dream is the real one? If they never accept, is this enough for me? A life with this woman asleep next to me? Do I give myself permission to dream other dreams? And her answer, after careful thinking, is simply yes. Because the dream was an echo of reality. Her family had chosen, and so had she. And look, despite it all, she had made a good life, a life in which she didn't have to suffer in those old ways. In this second life, she was safe and in love, free from the first and its brutal texture. Yes, because she didn't give herself this second childhood, this second chance, just to have this new one also be violent. Yes, she thought again, yes, this is my life. This is my life. This is my life. And that was what did it.
Thank you so much for that potent, charged, complex excerpt, actually. There's almost a kind of claiming, I think, of recognition of the life that she's chosen for herself. I love the line, I can lean against this person without falling on the floor. I mean, that just blew me away. That line, when I read it, I was like, wow, what a way to describe falling in love with somebody. It just blew my head off. It's just fantastic. Thank you so much for that. There are themes in this book that I think are really, really important. Themes of joyous rebellion, the claiming of the self, resistance, capitalism and its impact on, people that may be made to feel silent, because of their circumstances, and corruption as well. Like, you interweave these themes so beautifully, I think, and in a way that you're not hitting people over the head with it as well. There's a subtlety to the way that you do it. I want to ask you about these elements in the work, and it's like you show you show the grittiness of the city, but you also show that level with the capitalism, and then you show the spiritual level as well. So it's just this like architectural construct almost that you've created. So could you talk about these themes and talk about that, like the constructing of these elements?
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'm actually still laughing.
It's true.
But yeah.
Well, talk about resistance. Talk about resistance and rebellion, because I think that really struck me in the way. Yeah, I think that comes through so strongly. So yeah, maybe you could talk about those elements.
Something I really like seeing on a page is when like a character can find a string of light and just pull it. Because I think that when things are difficult, when things are complex, when things are heavy or like interwoven, you're dealing with this part, you're dealing with finances and dealing with love and dealing with loneliness and this and that. There has to be a string, a thread of light that you find inside that.
Yeah.
And I think in this book, I wanted to really concentrate on people who were making the choice to look at that thread of light and to pull on it. In a place that feels like it's relentless, with its demands. That's so radical to do. That's rebellious to do. Like choosing to just calm down and love somebody in a world where everything is just unhinged. Like, I think that's where rebellion is,
Yeah.
And I really appreciated what you said about subtlety, because that was very important to me. Like, I think when I think about rebellion, I don't always think about protest. I think about just everyday characters and people making choices.
Yes.
Happening, but I choose this way. Like, yeah, the law is saying this about me, but I choose love. Amazing. Or my parents are saying, I choose love. And I think that for me to write this book, I had to expand my understanding of what rebellion actually is. And sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it says nothing, actually. And so it feels good just to have read that excerpt as well, because that's one of the stories that touches my heart every single time. And
no, I love that story, and I was trying not to get emotional while you were reading it, because I really love it. And I love what you said about sometimes resistance can be quiet, and it's multifaceted. I think as Black people and Black women especially, people expect resistance from us to look a certain way, protest. and while that serves a very strong purpose and function and is absolutely critical, there are other ways of showing resistance. And this way you explain it, of holding on to strings of light, oh my goodness, that is wonderful. And yes, because that takes so much courage actually to do that. It takes so much courage to be in an intense situation and to not completely collapse under it. It takes so much courage to see those glimmers of light and that string of light, like you said, and actually hold on to it and haul yourself out of it. And it's just beautifully expressed. Thank you so much for that. You've created this incredible world of characters, and I wonder about the process for you, and what were some of the difficulties you encountered writing it? Did you because they were different stories initially, did you find that theme of rebellion was difficult to connect them with? Or, I'm curious about how it worked, and, what were the things that you had to kind of overcome throughout this process?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Myself, that was the hardest one. Myself, because I think the thing that stands in the way between you and your best work, like your most courageous work, is whether or not you think you deserve what's on the other side of telling the story. And for a long time, I didn't believe that I deserved to write a book like this. And so that was actually the hardest part. It wasn't the writing, it wasn't the like putting the book together. It was just overcoming the thing in myself that kept on telling me to be quieter or to be less risky, to be less courageous. I think that was the hardest part of putting this book together, just believing that I deserve to write this book. And also I deserve like to have this book as a reader. Like I deserve to have this book, you know? If I'm going to stay in the world, this is one of the books I want, you know, in my life. It's one of the books I want to be able to refer back to. So I think that was the hardest part for me of crafting it, just believing myself worthy.
It's, you know, I actually feel like I want to cry hearing you say that, because that kind of honesty, you know, people don't often tell you that. Well, you know, when you speak to other writers, they don't reveal that aspect to doing the work, because they, you know, they often want you to think that everything is shiny and wonderful. But no, let's talk about the reality of how goddamn difficult this stuff can be, you know. And I just appreciate you saying that so much. And my goodness, do you deserve all the damn flowers that are coming for you for this incredible work. I'm just here to tell you that right now. And we're so appreciative of your talent. It's so interesting that you say it's about giving yourself permission, you know, giving yourself permission. Toni Morrison has a saying, you know, I'm sure you've heard it: if there's a book that you want to see out in the world that doesn't exist, make it. Make it, create it. And what you've done is you've listened to your voice and done and created that, you know, and that's an incredible thing, you know. This is, I feel this is a book, you know, that people will look back on years down the line, and it will still be interesting, it will still be relevant, because the themes in it are so prescient. And you know, you've created a singular work and you've been brave enough to do that. And that's what art is about. It's about having the guts, the cojones, as they say, to do that, you know, to pursue it. So congratulations. I'm so impressed by the depth of your writing, but also, like I said to you, you know, and I'm a reader as well. I'm a big reader and writer, and you know, so sometimes I look at things from a reader's perspective. But there's such an energy to your writing, and there's this vibrancy there. Can you talk about how you came to your style? You know, because that's also interesting, how a writer gets to have that authorial sense of themselves on the page. Talk a little bit about that.
Wow.
Were you always aware that you wanted to write in this way, or you know, was it something that kind of developed over time, and the more you found your confidence, the more you felt like, okay, this style where, you know, it's visual, it's kind of enriching and colorful, but also there's a craft to it. You know, there's a craft to the writing. It's skilled writing. I mean, Paris Review column, hello. So you know, it's like it's there. So I think it would be very useful for the audience, and a lot of who will be aspiring writers, to know about that, because some of them will be writing and they won't be, you know, quite sure whether or not that's the style they want to go. They might be a little bit unsure, but it's always encouraging to hear from an author how that process is.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was thinking about it actually. But I think the best thing I told myself that actually made the book possible was to allow myself write like I sound. Like when you know how you sound, like in the quiet of your head, when no one else, when you don't have to like use words. You know how like, yeah, like I want to write how my head sounds.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that that's what I would say to like any other writers who like had that question. I think it would be like, just actually trust your desire, trust the things that make you tick, you know? And I think that's also another thing that builds your style. If you just allow your interests to come onto the page. So if you're interested in music, if you're interested in food, let that show.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's how my style came about, because I was like, yeah, I'm interested in pidgin English. I'm interested in like writing in pidgin, reading in pidgin.
Yeah.
I'm interested in fragmentary stories forming one whole. I'm interested in, you know, pulling influences from different places. Like the same book has the Bible, and it also has like, I don't know, Alice Smith, and also has Burna Boy. Like it's okay for all of these to come together, because actually that's what style is. Style is just like, it's basically a collection of your interests. That's what it is.
That's a really useful, and I think great way of explaining it is pursuing those interests, and not just pursuing it, but enjoying. I love the use of pidgin in this book, because I love pidgin. When I go back to Nigeria, I'm listening to everybody. So when you say, actually, you know, I really wanted to explore pidgin English in this, I'm like, yes, because it's fantastic. Like, you know, why wouldn't you? And to incorporate it just gives it an interesting textural quality. I think, well, we want to hear what your head sounds like. I personally like hearing what your head sounds like. So
thank you.
I think that's a very, very cool way of explaining it, you know. So we would be delighted.
How does it work for you?
I mean,
like, how do you know when you've written a story that feels true? You know, sometimes you write a story and you're like, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
How do you know when you're right? Like,
for me, it's like I have to feel like I've been transformed through the process, because I always approach the page like it's an investigative process for me. So I never go in wanting to know everything. I'm not interested in that. I find out the world as I build it.
As you go.
I go. And that, for me, when I come out of it and I'm like, yeah, it was a revelation. I mean, I wrote a short story about monks, about monks facing a bloody season in my collection Nudibranch. And the reason that story idea came to me is like, where I used to live, there was an old broken down monastery, and I would go past it every day, and I thought, God, this existed. What would it be like to reimagine that world? And also, I was fascinated by the secret lives of monks. You know, even seeing them on the street, they look different to everybody else. They have to compromise on certain things. And I was interested in silence. What happens during silences? You know, so digging into that world for me was like, wow, this is going to be really interesting. So yeah, it's working on several levels, but we want to go back into your head, I think. So let's have another excerpt from you, please, so we can be in this wonderful mind.
Okay. One sec. Let me see. Okay. Wura Blackson was determined to rest in peace. To make sure of this, she was going to die alone. She wasn't going to go the traditional way, surrounded on her deathbed by family members who would hold her hand, smile weakly into her face, and pray for her, singing worship songs as her body crossed over. Wura was not that kind of believer. as clearly as some people remembered the day they gave their lives to Christ. She remembered the day she took hers back, a dull Sunday, over a plate of pounded yam and eforiro, when she realized she no longer wanted to cover her food with the blood of Jesus. She had spent all her life praying this prayer, and then, quite suddenly, decided that Jesus, by now, had lost enough blood and she didn't need to be part of the millions of people summoning more. With just as much clarity, Wura decided, 2 years after that Sunday, on her new faith. When Wura still believed in heaven and hell, she, of course, wanted heaven with all the cells in her body. She wanted to be right, so badly to be right, to be ushered into the afterlife by warm, holy light and told, well done. But now, she couldn't imagine an eternity, no matter its promises of golden streets and many mansions, that didn't feel like punishment. She'd done a lot of living, and she was thankful for it, sure. But what she wanted at the end was for the room she died in to be still enough for her to hear her own body go quiet, to hear her heart stagger toward its final punctuation. For that moment to feel correct, she knew she had to be the one to think that final thought, it is done. After that thought came, what she wanted to follow was silence. No wailing, no mourning, no dramatic grieving, no swollen sighs, just a quiet movement away.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you. That was wonderful. I want to come back to operating in both the novel and short story form. As a writer, I mean, it just shows that kind of a multifaceted skill, but what do you get from the different mediums that, you know, that feels rewarding to you? Writing short stories, because people sometimes ask me that, and it's an interesting way to, it's almost like for me using two different sides of the brain in some way. So I was curious how you feel about it.
I love that you're asking me this because, confession, I read one of your interviews before we started this conversation. Because I was like, yeah, I want to know what you think about short stories because
I love them. So I love them.
I know, because you write excellent short stories. Like what? So yeah, I read your answer to that actually, where you were like, it feels like using two different parts of my brain. And when I write the novel, it's a whole different parts. And when I write short stories, it's different. I prefer to write my stories in short form. Especially when I realize that I like to build a book brick by brick. I don't like to feel like I'm knitting something necessarily. And that's what a novel feels like for me. It feels like you have to be sure. You have to make sure that all the like hoops are correct, that they're the same size. I can't do that. So I have to build my books story by story, you know? And so it's hard for me to answer that question because I think I'm almost always going to like find a way to weave multiple stories together and make that a novel, as opposed to writing a book that feels more linear.
I know it's such a complicated question sometimes because everybody has their own way of doing it, and sometimes, you know, even with when you've done the novel and people ask you how you do it, you're like, I don't know. I just did it.
I can't tell you.
I'm gonna tell you how I approach it. I love short stories so much, and I think we're similar in the sense that like our brains, like the short form lends itself really well to like how we think, right? So the way I was able to get around the novel is similar. It was like I just pretended like each chapter was a mini short story.
Exactly. That's how I cope.
That's how you cope.
Yes.
That's how you cope. Otherwise, you're just like, oh my God.
I literally cannot do that. I can't. Like,
but you've done it. But you have done it. You know, so it's just We're revealing the tricks of the trade here.
But yeah, short stories have my heart. I just have to say that. I'm sorry.
They're just, I just think it's such a special form,
Yeah.
and for me, the short story really gives you permission to go there, to just like you said, like the stories you really want to write, it allows you to do that, I think. So it's just an amazing form. But I was very curious because I know you do both. I was very curious as to how you approach it. It's just it's really
something else that I want to ask about. You write poems every day?
Yeah, I do every day, and I can't not. I can't basically I can't really feel like I'm a writer unless I do that, because it's my practice. So so I write about 12 poems a day, but they're not but they're not like long poems. They're basically like strange mini prose poems that wouldn't make sense to anybody. Do you know what I mean? It's just but it's just that but if I don't get them out, I'll just be carrying them in my body. So it's like I've got endless notebooks with these crazy little poems that just make no sense, but it's my process, so it's just I kind of have to do it, and this is how I function now. Welcome to my world. But I want to talk about, earlier you were speaking on the different things that go into your process as an artist, and I love visual artists. I have to tell you, I love, like, and I love that you do this. I just think it's so incredible because, on the days where I need inspiration, I often will go to a museum or a gallery and just look at work exhibitions from women and just be inspired. So I'm kind of blown away that you straddle all these different mediums, and I'm fascinated by how they feed into each other, because I just like to make art in that way, and then to be able to write it, like, which God's couple to produce you is what I want to know. Really and truly, it's just astonishing. So please talk about your visual art, because you're also, I'm sure the audience know, very accomplished as a visual artist as well, had work exhibited internationally. I mean, it's just amazing. So please talk a little bit about that too, and how it feeds into the writing.
Thank you. Okay, so my visual art actually starts with photographs. So I used to call myself a photographer until I realized that that's not what I wanted to do. I like taking photos, but only at the starting point.
Right.
I like moving. I think that what I do with visual art is also what I do with story. So in a way, it doesn't feel like two parts of my brain. It feels like the same part, but just like speaking a different language.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the way it works for me is I turn fact into fiction with visual art. So I do that by distorting a photograph until it looks kind of like a painting. That's amazing. Basically like my process stripped down.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I feel like it's another way of storytelling, but it's just more like zoomed in, because then I know what my characters' features look like. I know what like their form is like. So I think that they both come from the same part, basically. And all of it is interested in the same thing, which is just going deeper into fiction, Yeah, and how do I get my fiction to look like me on the inside here,
Your head.
Yeah, how do I get my fiction to look like my head? And that's what my visually, and it looks different in my stories, but it's the same thing.
That's that's so, I think, illuminating for people to know. It's like, finding these different ways to sort of mine your imagination, also sort of skewering, like, the process of your painting, or skewering photographs to make them look like, I mean, it's like, again, that element of transforming things in a way to create something new. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
That's
yeah,
my
that's
favorite thing about anything, like turning something into something else. It's like,
yeah,
how do you take the same short story into something that's mind blowing?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm always trying to answer that question. Sometimes you infuse more truth. Sometimes you take away like time. You know,
yeah.
they're just all the answer there if you ask yourself that. So I think that's what I try to do in as many forms as I can.
That's just brilliant. And also, like you said, if you ask yourself, so you're a seeker in a way,
Yeah,
you're seeking like methods to tell stories, in a
yeah,
way, and that's really, really exciting. I'm curious because you are this kind of polymath, I think, already, working in multiple mediums, during this pandemic period, which felt like a dystopia in itself for the world. Were there things as a writer, or areas that you felt like new areas you yourself felt like you wanted to explore, or did you have time to be reflective about, the choices that you've made, and are there areas that you're possibly like for me, it was really interesting. Like some people were really productive during the pandemic period, and then there were other people like me who were just like, oh my god, I'm just processing what's happening, I can't write except my strange
yeah.
poems.
I hear that.
you know you know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
curious how it impacted you. Was it just kind of business as usual in terms of your making process, or yeah, so because it's different for everybody, so yeah, I was just curious about that.
Oh my God, it was not. I freaked out for months and months and months.
Mm,
So I barely wrote anything. And I think that the only thing I was writing at the time was actually more nonfiction. I couldn't write fiction at all because
right.
everything just felt strange, and it felt like I was just some random figure in
Mm,
a world I didn't understand. So I think that at that time it was like I just lost touch with the concept of myself, like as a
mm,
maker of
yeah.
fiction. I just um, but I think now that's changing, and even now, like coming out on the other side of just that quiet, I'm realizing that my process has changed. I don't write as much in a hurry anymore.
Mm, mm.
Like I trust that the things that are there are going to stay there. Um, so I think that's one way that like having a long pause
Yeah.
in my process actually helped. It just took away the urgency of everything.
Yeah, and also I think, that's totally cool, and in some ways can be revitalizing, because, if you're writing urgently, I mean, that is also a really interesting process, but sometimes you do need to maybe just stop and, take a little bit of a break and assess things and process what you've been through and have other ideas bubbling, and give them
Yeah,
room to rise to the surface.
actually, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's been such an odd time, hasn't it? Like
it
with
has.
this it's just
Like,
crazy. So yeah, it's really interesting. I'm gonna have a look in the chat box just to see if there are questions here. Someone says, what sorcery is this? Yes, ask her what sorcery that she makes, please. um Oh no, just lots of love for you here in the chat box, which is absolutely as it should be. I want to come back just briefly to influences for this book. Earlier, we touched on what goes into that process. You mentioned Burna Boy. I love him so much. He's amazing. And other influences. What other influences do you think you drew inspiration from? So there's music, there's books, you're an artist, language, pidgin English, it's just this like immersion mixture of wonderful stuff. You know, so I'm really, are there things that might surprise people? Because I'm always interested in that, you know, when people say there are, you know, that, like, there's an artist in the UK called Florence and the Machine that I really like her music. I love Florence. She's astonishing, right? So I remember when I was first listening to Florence, and I was like, I know there's something in the music that feels a little bit familiar, but I can't place it. And then I saw an interview where she said, "Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of gospel music," and I was like, that makes sense to me, because even though she's got this otherworldly voice, there is this power, like galvanizing momentum to it, that is just fantastic. And when she said gospel, I was like, oh, that makes sense. You know, so, but I wouldn't have seen that coming. It was kind of like, okay, really interesting. So I'm interested in those things that would, you know, that might surprise people and go, I never would have thought that, you know. So are there things that, you know, made you feel like, oh, this has inspired me and opened up a little window in my brain somehow for this book?
Yeah, okay. So I listen to a lot of grime music.
Yeah.
So, and I think that because I listened to grime, I was able to craft some of the voices in the book. Like Tatafo, for instance, there's just there's
an edginess. There's an edginess there. Yes.
Listening to grime that makes you think I can say whatever I want.
Yeah.
So I think that actually really helped to give me like courage, you know, and just energy. Like whenever I listen to grime and I go to the page, I just write surprising shit. Always.
This is so cool, like, to have things that can just make your brain like just work in a different way, and you almost don't understand how that happens, but you know that there's something in it that allows you just that freedom, you know. I think it's just having that freedom to, like you say, do whatever the hell you want and not be constrained by anything. I have one last question for you before we wrap up. I think, you know, making a book is a life-changing process. It really is, you know, to have, not only to have the idea, but to be able to execute it and to, in a way, have it live up to your intentions for it. You know, I think when a book does that, that's such a special thing. So I'm curious as to how you feel this writing this book, making this book has changed you. And I just hope, as somebody who really loves what you do, that it just has given you that permission, you know, which you've given yourself already, to just keep going. So yeah, I was just, that last question.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I think this is so great.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
This is so great. But yeah, how did writing this book change me? It made me realize that I value what I have to say more than I value whatever constraints the world or society or culture tries to put on me. And I think that will always influence what I choose to write. So yeah, writing this book, finishing it, being alive on the other side of it, made me realize I can write whatever I want.
Amazing. And that's huge. That's huge for an artist to come off the bat with that kind of clarity and acuity and sense of yourself is so important. And it means that nobody is ever going to be able to take that away from you, because you already have that there so clearly. What a joyful artist to be in conversation with. I'm just so grateful that we had this conversation, and I think your work is amazing, and there's obviously more to come. Thank you for such an enriching conversation and being so generous to the audience in your honesty regarding the questions. I certainly was really touched by some of the things that you said, and you have such a humility to you whilst having such a power to your voice. If you haven't gotten a copy of this wonder of a book of Vagabonds, which came into my life last year, and I grabbed it with such eagerness, and I'm not disappointed at all that I did that. Please, don't walk, run to get yourself a copy of this absolute wonder. Eloghosa, such a pleasure to be in conversation with you, my dear, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Congratulations on everything, and thank you to Ndegwa Cheche Books for this platform, who I'm going to hand over to now.
Yes, wow. Kind of really very feeling I'm wallowing in vanity right now, because when I thought of this pair, I knew. I remember that day when I sent you a DM, Irenosen, because we were in here and I was just telling my boss, I think Irenosen should speak to Eloghosa. And to see how this conversation has turned out, I'm just like, wow. I will say this. I had said this for 1.5, which is not to say that we have to reach 1.5. I just wanted to know, out of the people I see who came in, if anyone had a question just before we close up. Before anyone types, I will ask this, Eloghosa. You spoke at some point about holding on to strings of light. And when Irenosen brought up the fact that you dabble in multiple art forms, I'm curious as to what headspace and what light you are holding on to when you produced Tata for the film, because I saw the trailer and I was absolutely fascinated, which, by the way, I just like to add something, that I have been in a group where we have actually conceded that Tatafo is the best narrator we have ever read in a book. And this is not, and Tatafo is not even human. But I have a friend who is in Eswatini right now, but she came to Cheche to get a copy of Vagabonds when we got in the hard copies, and she had bought it on Kindle, but then she was like, screw this, I'm coming to get a physical copy. And a few days down the line, she's like, Tatafo is such a fascinating narrator. And I remember then seeing the trailer, and I'm just wondering, where were you when all that was coming together?
I love that. Thank you so much for your energy. Where was I when I was making that? Actually, so to make Tatafo, I already had all these questions, right? From like my time studying the Bible, being a Christian. I know that one of the questions I had in my mind was, what does it mean to be the chosen angel of one of the most powerful forces ever, and then to be cast out? What does it mean? And what would that person's narrative or story or version of events be? And so when I was creating the Tatafo character, I knew that he had to be like an angel, like a right-hand angel. He had to know what power felt like. He had to know what it meant to lose power, because then that would be the only person who would be able to tell us how power shifts or why like certain things happen the way they do. And so that's where my head was at. I was trying to answer these questions I have about power, like what is it like? What is the created's relationship to their creator? And how can that change if, for instance, the creator is just like, you're not holy enough, or you're too jealous, or you're too whatever? Your life can literally change. And so I wanted to create a character who has come so close to power and also loses it, because then that's how we get to understand the world, So that's where I was with crafting that character. And it means so much to me that readers love this character specifically.
Oh, I think he's frozen. Oh, goodness me. But no, that is he back?
Amazing.
Oh, he's back.
And I guess since the final one, yes? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I also wanted to know on your very deliberate decision to feature other writers and their works. Because I remember in the story Fairy God Girl, there's a mention of Pet, a book that I absolutely love, and the Icarus Girl, a masterpiece. In this day and age, when we are creating space where narratives that would otherwise not have been told, given space, I want to know how, why, and are you satisfied with the effect and the decision to give other writers space in Vagabonds?
Yes, I had zero regrets. I love that
Yes.
so much. I feel like, in a way, one of the things that kept me going with the book was knowing that I was creating a playlist of some kind. Like the playlist includes books, it includes short stories, it includes music. And I wanted to give that to readers as well, because I'm really good at curating stuff. So like that was one of the things that helped me to keep going with the process. I made it exciting. I was like, yeah, it would just be so good to be honest about the things I love in writing. And I think that that's what I did there.
I think Aretha has just commented after I mentioned Fairy God Girls. It's like Fairy God Girls with heart emojis. Yep, that was great. That was a fascinating story. And well, since we have no question, Eloghosa, this book has been a blessing.
One more question.
Hi.
One more question.
Hi, Mogoi. Hi.
So sorry. Hi, I've put my question in the comments.
Okay. Oh, ask it actually. Just ask it.
Okay, cool. Hi, first of all, this is I didn't even realize we'd be interacting with you guys in this way. I thought we'd just be watching like the stream, but great. So Eloghosa, how have you been resting, and how do you nurture your creating? It's like a dual question, but like they're related, I guess.
Yeah.
In my mind.
I love that question. That's a great question. Yeah. I love questions about rest because I'm always thinking about that. How have I been resting? I've been doing some great stuff. I've been sleeping a lot. I have been spending time with my love. I have been driving daily. I have been reading, and I listen to music all the time. So that always helps me to like keep my mind like good. Yeah, I think those would be the main answers that I have to that question. And then I think there was the second part. How do I nurture my creating? By resting and also by taking pleasure seriously.
Yeah.
I think as much as I can, I try to remember that like my life is as important as my work, if not more. So yeah, the fact that, you know, I'm making work doesn't mean that I don't get to experience pleasure. So the way I take care of the work I make is by making sure that I am okay and that I am near delight. Yeah.
That's so good.
Thank you.
So good. Thank you. Also, thank you so much for just making and existing, like the amount of permission, like as a artist, queer person in this space, the continent. Wow. Just like thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for reading and being here. This means so much to me, this event. We've been trying to make this happen. So like we're all here. I'm very happy. This is great.
It was a wonderful conversation.
How was Nairobi?
Great. So great. So great.
Perfect.
So,
I guess this marks the end of this. I am very sad. I feel like I might cry after I leave. If you are in Nairobi, this wonderful book is waiting for you. Come get it, give us your money. Eloghosa deserves to be on your shelf like yesterday.
Are you visiting Nairobi anytime soon, Eloghosa?
Am I what?
Are you visiting Nairobi
Yes,
sometime
I will
soon?
probably be back in Nairobi in the next 2 months.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to do a little thing with Cheche.
We are at your shrine. Come. We want to participate in the gospel of Eloghosa and the gospel of Vagabonds.
Amen, amen, amen. Love to hear it.
Amen. Amen.
Irenosen, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
You are intelligent. I can't. Oh, wow. Wow. I can't. Those questions, amazing. Eloghosa, beautiful, talented. Need I say more? Thank you so much to everybody who
Pleasure.
joined us.
Thank you.
And have a good night all. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hi, Ndegwa.
Hello.
Hi, sorry, I wanted to ask, was the earlier part of the conversation recorded by any chance?
Okay, lol. I'm going to make sure I have, because we are still live on Facebook, but we have been live
Oh.
since the start.
Okay, also it will be on your Facebook.
Yeah, it has been streaming here and on Facebook concurrently from the start.
Okay, cool. So
Yes.
thank you so much.
I am glad you love Vagabonds,
Yes.
and I don't want to ask if you got it from Cheche. Have a good
I'll
night.
be seeing you at Cheche soon. Okay, bye. Have a
Welcome.
good